This Week in Startups is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Meeting is believing. Visit gotomeeting.com. Click the Try It Free button and sign up for a 30-day trial. And Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and I'm an angel investor, and I get a lot of emails. Now, why is this important? Well, I open them all, and, well, I try not to open them all, to be totally honest. There's hundreds of them a day. And once in a while, I'll click on something, and I say, wow, that's really fracking cool. Shut the front door, as the kids are saying these days. I cannot believe it. This is so cool. This happened to me just last night. Sitting there at a poker table, I get an email. I said, wow, that's really cool. Somebody sent me a video about robotic agriculture. And I said, that to me seems like a no-brainer. Why haven't I seen this before? When I haven't seen something before, I usually say, hey, let me have the founder come in and talk about it. So I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to introduce you to the founder. So we'll pull up my computer here for a second, and I will hit play on this one, which was the first one I happened to click on. And I click on this video, and I see a robot, R-O-W-B-O-T, come running through a cornfield doing something. And I said to myself, wow, that looks like science fiction. And this is one of the interesting things about the world we live in today, is that the stuff that we're seeing in science fiction is actually here right now. It's hard to write science fiction. I feel bad for the science fiction authors. They're being disintermediated by entrepreneurs actually building the stuff that they used to be in the business of convincing us would exist. So today, Kent Cavender Bears,
Yeah.
who I just met on email yesterday, is with us. What is Robot? When did you start it and why?
So coming up on 4 years ago, grew up around agriculture, and I have a brother who's a large-scale farmer.
Your brother's a large-scale farmer.
Yeah, so one of the most profitable dairy farmers in the Northeast, so New York State.
Oh, really? Upstate New York?
Yep.
Kingston, Albany?
Further south of Buffalo.
Oh, south of Buffalo.
Yep.
It's cold
So
up there, man.
Western New York.
Yeah, woof. Rochester, Buffalo. It's cold up there.
It is.
You been up there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we grew up east side of Cleveland and always went to the Buffalo area
Got it.
for weekends, summers. That's where we farmed.
Yeah. Okay, so you grew up around this.
Yeah, and so our background's in ag. I was going to design farm equipment as an undergrad at Cornell, and then got interested in the environment, went on and did a master's and PhD in environmental engineering, and worked as a science advisor for a number of years in some nonprofits, and 4 or 5 years ago was at a crossroads, sort of dealing with nonprofit sector not doing so well after the big collapse and trying to figure out what was next.
Oh, the real estate market collapsing, that sent shockwaves through the nonprofit sector because all the rich people stopped giving donations.
That's the quick overview.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never considered the fallout actually hit the nonprofit sector, but it makes total sense.
So if you had the wisdom to try to start a new nonprofit in around 2009, which I did, it took a little while to realize that
like,
was
hey,
not the
you went to
smartest.
meet with the bankers. You're like, hey, can I interest you in some, and they said, do you have a job?
Yeah.
I know. Okay, so you went to Cornell, you studied all this stuff, and then you decide you're going to do a startup?
Well, that's kind of how it played out. Really didn't know what we were doing, but we wanted to tackle the biggest problem facing agriculture today, which is nutrient pollution.
I've never heard of that. What is nutrient pollution?
Well, so that's...
I mean, I can guess.
If you've heard of the proverbial dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, that's where...
I haven't heard of that. What is that?
So that's where all these excess nutrients, so think nitrogen fertilizer, that goes on cropland and it comes down the river, runs off the cropland because they put on too much, for good reasons, but they put on too much, comes down, and it fertilizes the algae in the Gulf of Mexico. They grow, they love it. because they didn't have enough nitrogen. But then they die because they don't live very long, and they settle down. And then when they die, the bacteria break them down, cycle of life, use up all the oxygen. So then it creates a low oxygen zone. It's not technically a dead zone. It's a low oxygen zone. But things that can move, like fish, they'll just get the heck out of there.
So we're polluting the Gulf of Mexico from the...
Yeah.
You say, what are they called? It's the fertilizer. What do you call it?
Yeah, so nitrogen fertilizer.
Nitrogen fertilizer.
Yeah, that's the big culprit right now.
So we put nitrogen fertilizer onto the earth in order to have more robust crops.
Yep. So corn is the biggest crop in the U.S. Take all of agriculture in California and double it. That's how much corn land there is in the U.S.
Corn syrup, everything. Yeah. So all that's flowing down to the Gulf of Mexico quite naturally.
Yep. So that's a downstream problem. There's actually upstream problems. So
Which
right
are?
now, in
Waste, I would bet.
Well, it's polluting the water, drinking water.
The water table.
So you can't have nitrate, a high level of nitrate in the drinking water because it's a human health issue.
Yep.
Especially for pregnant women.
Yeah.
So take Des Moines, city in Iowa. It's big in politics right now, but it's also this epicenter of what's going on in agriculture because the Des Moines Water Works, which has to clean this water to provide it to their, as a utility,
to the citizens.
said, hey, we're paying way too much to clean this. So that a year ago, they sued 3 counties upstream. So it's the city versus the rural folks. And the governor says, hey, you're declaring war. But they went ahead. And now it's gone to the Iowa Supreme Court. Who knows where it'll go? But it's an indicator that...
Isn't that fascinating?
We're messing things up.
And are they putting this nitrate? You said nitrates?
Yeah, so nitrate's the form that ends up in the water. It doesn't go on as nitrate.
Are they putting too much on because it's better to risk polluting the water table, not your issue, than to have your crops not grow as big?
Exactly.
So the incentives are totally screwed up.
Yep.
They're just thinking about their next crop when they should be thinking about the water. If they had to pay the cost of cleaning the water or the fish leaving the Gulf of Mexico, they would be a little more judicious in their use of this fertilizer.
Well, it's not just that. They put something like $100 of nitrogen on per acre.
Per acre?
To grow their corn. So if they're losing half of it, they're losing $50 an acre, which is a really big deal. So it's an opportunity. I don't want to put the farmer in the bad spot because they're actually, given the tools that they have, they're doing a decent job. The problem is that it's hard to put the nitrogen on at the right time, and that's...
So what's this robot have to do with any of this?
Yeah.
I saw the robot here.
So the idea is...
What's his or her name? You have a name for them? Everybody names
This
their
one's
robots.
Robot One.
That's called Robot One?
Yeah, we're selling naming rights, so keep that
Very
in mind.
creative there in
I know
Des
your
Moines.
daughter might be.
Very creative there in Des Moines. Robot One, how did you come up with it?
We're in Minneapolis.
In Minneapolis.
Set us
it's
apart.
creativity just booming at Robot. And you named the company Robot, so obviously just you guys are, it was either that or an ad agency, right? You couldn't figure out which one to put that creativity to use.
Exactly. So the idea is corn gets really tall. It's hard to get on the field as the corn's getting taller, but that's when it needs fertilizer. It doesn't need it in the fall when it's easy to put it on. It needs it when it's 4 feet tall, 6 feet tall.
Got it.
And so now we go between the rows. We remove height from the equation.
So that was the issue.
Yep.
Those big, whatever they call them, tractors.
Tractors, yeah.
The big tractors are fine when the corn is not grown or short.
Yep.
But once it grows, you're going to demolish it.
And so they make equipment that can handle taller corn, but basically it gets harder and harder to do it without messing up the crop.
Right.
And so a lot of farmers just say the heck with it. We're going to put
So
more
there's like a
on.
little tractor that runs through.
Yep.
Now, what does it do intelligently? Does it know where it is? Is it aware of the corn on either side? Is it using LiDAR? What is it doing?
Absolutely. So this version's using LiDAR to see the crop. So many times per second, it's adjusting its course.
So it never knocks out a stalk of corn?
That's
Theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically. That's where
Once
we're
in a while, it
headed.
could hit a bump.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not on level land. I saw it. It looks like...
Right.
That's what's crazy about it, is when you see it running through the field like that,
Yep.
you could see it wobbling and hitting bumps. Like, this is not a controlled environment.
Absolutely. It's better than self-driving car world.
Is it?
It is.
Well, because you're not risking hitting somebody.
Yeah, so there are going to be people on a field, but very infrequently.
Very infrequently,
And it's a fairly structured environment. These rows, they're planted known
that's right.
spacing. There's probably 50 different ways to plant a field. There's not 5 million. So we have that working for us. We can probably put a machine on a field without knowing anything about the field in a year or two. where you probably can't do that with a self-driving car. You need
And
it.
here's another view of it. So we can see here, it looks like like the raptor in
Yep.
Jurassic Park going to the cornfield.
Yep.
You know it's there because it's wobbling through, and that is dropping fertilizer. Is that what it's
It's
doing?
spraying liquid fertilizer right at the base of the plants in a controlled way, getting it right where the plant needs it at
Got
that
it.
stage.
So that's pretty brilliant right there. That couldn't be done before. So they would just dump a lot of it on earlier. Is that what would happen?
Exactly. Or some farmers would use equipment that could get in over top of corn that tall, but a lot of them wouldn't.
Because it's too expensive, or?
It gets risky because
Yeah.
there's actually a lot of psychology. If you run over some corn that's tall, it really hurts if you're the farmer.
I can imagine.
If you run over short corn, which would have gotten tall, you're like, oh, well, you can't
Yeah.
really see it so much.
You're more vested.
Same consequence at the end of the season when you harvest, but it's emotionally, it's a hit.
Makes sense. And here is I could see it going through the field. That was pretty cool, too, to see its first-person perspective.
Exactly.
Now, I know that there's I went out to Monsanto earlier, maybe last year I went in the spring, and I met with a bunch of folks there. They bought the company Climate.com, and they know each hectare, each acre with sensors and satellites, what's going on, and they know the actual nutrients in the ground, or no? Can you tell what the ground nutrients are? How hard is that?
That is a tough one, to be honest. So
Is that the holy grail, to know the nitrate of
Yeah.
the ground in real time?
the holy grail is that machine goes through the field, it occasionally stops and samples the soil, and it occasionally samples the plant. And
Samples a plant. How do you sample a plant?
well, you can do it with non-invasive, so you can you can use different sensors like we use from satellites, but better ones because we're right next to the plant. We can actually clip off a part of the plant and do an analysis as
So
we're
you
driving
know
along.
what is in the plant's bloodstream, so to speak.
Yeah. So we show up at the field and we have a pretty good idea the variation across the field, but then we improve it as we go. That's
what?
our holy grail.
You're going to need a Robot 2.
Oh, we're going to need.
Robot 2 should just do the sampling, and it should be out in front of Robot 1, only because it's cooler.
Well, so that it's a great point. And a lot of people have said, oh, it's so complicated, put fertilizer on, just go for the data piece. But the problem with the data piece is that then it has to support the cost of all that infrastructure, the capital.
Yeah.
We think it's much smarter. Get out there, get paid $10, $15 an acre to run the machine, and then maybe sell data for $1 an acre.
Yeah.
And so it's an add-on.
And so when do you think people will be able to sample the earth and know what's going on in there? And
Well, so farmers already do soil sampling, and
Yeah.
typically they take a sample, they send it off to a lab, and 2 weeks later they find out. There's some real-time stuff that you can get nitrate analyzed in 5 minutes at the side of the field.
you put it into a beaker and you shake it or something?
something
Some liquid?
akin to that.
Yeah.
There's no reason that you couldn't miniaturize that a little bit more, and so that the machine is one pass, it's taking a sample, the next pass, it's learning from that.
All right. When we get back from commercial break, I want to show the most impressive video in this little collection of videos of the robot, ROWBOT, when we get back on This Week in Startups. Just think about all the time and effort and money you spend going to meetings, going across town, getting stuck in traffic from Palo Alto all the way up to San Francisco, out to Oakland, traveling across the country, going to Seattle, going down to LA, back to New York. It is exhausting, and it is a waste of time and money. Most meetings could occur with the help of GoToMeeting, and they would occur flawlessly. I know because I do these meetings all the time. In fact, I've been meeting with a dozen entrepreneurs every week over GoToMeeting, back to back to back, recording these meetings and sharing them back with the entrepreneurs as I give them feedback for when they come to the launch festival in March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, in fact. And I can only do it with GoToMeeting because everybody can use any product they have, computer, tablet, smartphone, doesn't matter what operating system, it just works everywhere. And it is HD quality with perfect HD sound and the ability to share screens. And it never hiccups, it never has bandwidth problems, it just always works. And that to me is the key. If you're going to do these kind of virtualized meetings, they can't be breaking up and they can't have poor fidelity. They have to be perfect. So here is your call to action. This is what I want you to do right now. I want you to go to GoToMeeting.com and try it free for 30 days. There is nothing to lose. Visit GoToMeeting.com and click the Try It Free button. Do it now and have your first meeting up and running in minutes. It literally works so simple that I have like little Google Calendar Chrome extension where it puts a GoToMeeting button every time I create a meeting, and I just press boop, GoToMeeting, and it generates a code, gives everybody the code, everybody knows the link, boom, and it just works. So go ahead and go to GoToMeeting.com and get your free 30-day trial. It's a great product. I've been using it for years. I love it. It's a pleasure for me to read an ad about GoToMeeting because I don't have to read it because I use it. It's literally on the list of my top 10, 20 products that I use every week. It just makes me super efficient in meeting with entrepreneurs. So thanks to our friends at GoToMeeting. And if you're a super fan of the show, go ahead and thank at GoToMeeting on Twitter. They love to see your support of the program. Okay, let's get back to this episode. All right, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest, Kent Cavender Bears. He is the CEO and co-founder of Rowbot, which is ROWBOT, and they make, of course, the Robot 1. You might have wanted to consider Uno. That might have been an interesting alternative. I could have. Or the French one, the Robot Un.
We just want to keep the branding really simple.
Right. You're simple people. This is salt of the earth farmers. You keep it nice and simple. But what it does is actually pretty impressive. Like this video is sick. What's the point of this video here? Just that?
Yeah, so the naysayers looked at this platform, low to the ground. Oh, you're going to get stuck all over the place.
Yep.
So this is a bit of a show to say, okay, we made a mud pit. We ran the thing through it.
Yeah, look at that, man.
We don't want it to go through this ever.
Right. But it was just literally 2 feet in the mud.
Yeah.
And it went through.
Yeah.
And these are gas-powered engines. They're not battery.
Diesel-powered.
They got to be diesel, right?
Yeah, because we want it to run 24/7.
So going back to the charging station.
Yeah, you wouldn't want, you could do a battery swap. You wouldn't want timeout charging. Maybe a battery swap. We just said, farmers are used to diesel.
Yeah.
We're introducing something out of the box already. Let's just do what they're used to.
Yeah.
Maybe battery technology gets to the point at some point we can swap out. We'd like that because it'd be a nice heavy weight down low. But
and actually, the video we saw earlier when it was running across the field, the one that actually made me tell you, hey, come on in, let's talk about it on This Week in Startups. That one actually, they're not, that one's not putting fertilizer. That one actually was planting seeds, right?
Correct.
Why are you planting seeds between corn?
So the idea is cover crops, they literally cover the ground, so they prevent erosion from the wind, from the rain. And then they also just build soil health. So there's a big uptick in use of these. Lots of interest. But the problem is if you grow corn, it finishes growing in September. You leave it in the field for 6 to 8 weeks to let it dry out. So you drive through the Midwest and it looks like, what's going on with these farmers? The corn's all yellow. And you wonder, are they being neglectful? What's going on? No, they're saving money.
Right.
Because they let it dry out naturally so they don't have to use propane. Which means that then they're harvesting the end of October, November. There's no growing season left for this cover crop. Mm-hmm. So then they have to put something on. If they're lucky, they get a little bit of growth before winter sets in.
But if not, it just damages it.
Then the soil's just bare.
Right, so it's whipped by the wind.
Yeah, and so the idea is here we can go in August. We can seed this cover crop. Now in September, the leaves start to turn brown, light gets down to the ground, that cover crop takes off, means it starts to grow. And then it's not affected by the harvest. And so it's sort of a win.
This is a relatively young company. You've just put a little bit of money in yourself and you did a small seed round.
Yep.
And have you done any trials yet? Or is this in the market? Or what's the state of the company in terms of the product getting to market? How do you charge for it?
So we're going to market as a service, robots as a service. We think it's the smart way to get started.
The classic RaaS model.
Yeah, exactly.
I just made that up. It's not SaaS, it's RaaS, robots as a service.
Exactly.
I love it.
And the idea is farmers are accustomed to paying for services already, so that's not a new thing. We know that they've got tons of technology today, and when it breaks, they get really frustrated. So we heard early on in our customer discovery that they're intrigued, but they don't want to own these things. 5 years from now, maybe they want to own them. But we actually think long-term as a service, whether we're providing it or we may sell fleets of machines to a third party that provides the service. That's probably the smart way. So you can think, farmer comes out with their iPad, they look over the field, they get a few data layers, and they say, okay, yeah, let's fertilize. They push the button. So it's a little bit like Uber for nitrogen, right? Just get it done in the next couple of weeks. I don't care exactly when it happens, just get it done.
And so how does it wind up paying for itself? Like on an average farm during your trials, what did you learn?
So, yeah, we haven't done extensive trials for a very good reason. So I'm a scientist by background. I don't want to start doing trials until I can do the right ones. And the right trials would be spread across many states.
Got it.
Because if you have a drought in one area, you've basically lost your season. It's not that it's bad data, but you wouldn't want to sort of bet the company on one data point that's influenced by weather. Because weather.
What do you expect the impact of the technology to be?
So if we look at the data available from others who have done this kind of testing with nitrogen, we should be able to save the farmer 20, 30% on their nitrogen spend. So that's big.
How much is the nitrogen spent over their overall budget?
So it's the biggest input cost after buying the seed.
Wow. So you have to give Monsanto their VIG, which is like half the VIG? I don't know.
So it's probably going to be $150 on seed or more per acre. And $100 on nitrogen.
Wow. So it's almost equal.
Yeah, so it's a big deal, a really big deal. So if we can save some of that. Now, the exciting thing is if you're applying nitrogen during the season and you're using the good data models, now climate you mentioned has some data models, but there are a bunch of other folks trying to predict how much nitrogen that field needs. So now you're at June 20th and you can say, okay, based on the rain that's happened and now my crop actually needs a little bit more than I would have put on 6 weeks ago. So I can put it on more, and now I'll get a yield bump. And so that's sort of we think we'll be able to drive a yield benefit as well as a cost savings on the product. And then that really drives profitability for the farmer.
What other robots do you think we'll see, putting even your company aside? What do you think farming will look like in 10 years? If things continue at this pace, obviously you've been at this for just a couple of years, right? You said 2 or 3?
Almost up to 4.
Almost up to 4. So you've been at it from 4 when you had the idea to getting a prototype.
Exactly.
So in another 10 years, and things are moving faster now, clearly, where do you think, not just your company, but just farming in general, will everything in the field be robotic? Will the cost of food go way down? What's going to happen?
So my hunch is that food is really cheap now. So it's
cheap.
We're probably not going to see an impact on cost. Right. But what we have to do as a planet is we're going to have 3 billion-ish more people. And the people who are there in 2015, the 9 billion or so, generally are going to want to eat a little bit better. So we need to figure out how to produce about twice as much food as we
Is that the
grow
number?
today.
We have to double the amount of food. And we have to make better food because people are becoming more conscious of this. This is what happened when I was at Monsanto because I was talking to them about the seeds. And we're talking about GMO and stuff like that. And they're like, well, we sell organic stuff too. We sell regular seeds that are not GMO. And if people want them, they can buy them. We'll just make money too. So their actual position is like, if the market wants that, some farmers are actually doing it but then they have to use more pesticide.
So the non-GMO, they've got to use more of something. They either go all the way to organic and they have to figure out how to weed to keep the weeds out mechanically.
If they go organic, they can't use pesticide.
Correct.
If they go with GMO, they don't need pesticide.
Well, no.
Or as much
They still spray a lot of chemicals. The idea is that it's less chemical than they would. But there's a bit of a hidden, like the dark underbelly, is that we have been applying Roundup, which is a reasonably benign herbicide for years, so that kills weeds. So you can plant the GMO crop, so the corn that's been genetically modified to be okay with Roundup being sprayed on top of it. But then maybe the farmer didn't put on quite as much as was prescribed, or something happened, but some weeds got through. Just like we have super bugs in hospitals.
And those weeds are now the ones that propagate.
So some people call them super weeds. That's probably not fair. What it is just weeds that survived. And then we
have some super weed here in the Tenderloin. If you go to Turk and Taylor, they got the super weed right there. It's amazing.
Well, water hemp is one of the bad weeds, so maybe there's something going on there.
So those are causing a problem now.
And then so year to year, they basically just keep getting further and further away. and cause a bigger problem. And then on those GMO crops, they've got to come up with a new cocktail that won't kill the corn, but will kill those. And so
that is like a race. It seems to me like it's like a escalation going on there.
Yeah.
And if we go with organic, you're going to get more weeds. You're going to have the food's not going to be as perfect. There's going to be more waste, I guess. It'll be not as crystal perfect.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges in my mind is if you want to do organic so that it looks just like conventional, then that's a problem.
It's not possible.
It's and it's not smart, right?
You're right. It's not going to be as pretty, but we're not going for pretty. People are giving up on pretty food, and they want to go with organic, natural, local, and not have to have the GMO stuff or not have to have the stuff that's laced in the pesticides. Some people would argue poisons.
Yep.
And will the robots will the robots, if they keep going at this pace, be able to weed the fields and make less efficient organic farming as efficient as the big Monsanto level farming is?
Well, in our mind,
we get there in a different way.
Yeah, in my mind, yes. I want to be clear that
Yeah.
I'm really agnostic on the GMO.
Sure, I understand.
Our kids eat mostly organic, but I'm not trying to make a statement for the world. I think it's a spectrum. So if we could use more organic-like techniques and maybe more sustainable, really we just have to figure out how to grow more food sustainably.
Right.
And it's going to be a mixture of all the best methods. But when we think about the future in 10 years, we're going to see smaller machines rather than big ones. Because if we're taking an operator out of the seat and making it autonomous, it no longer needs to be huge. And in fact, huge machines are damaging the soil by compacting it.
You needed the huge one because you wanted to minimize the number of humans, so you basically said, how much field can one human manage? Now you don't need that. You could have 10 little robots in the size of those giant tractors, doing it more efficiently.
Right, and it's worse than that because it's not only do you want that one operator to get stuff done as much as possible, you want it to get done as fast as possible because farming is dealing with risk. Farmers are just risk managers. So if you can get the work done this week, you want to get it done because you don't know what next week's going to bring in terms of weather. You might be locked out of getting
That's one of the problems
fields.
with the farming industry I find in my discussions with a lot of people is they're living season to season, crop to crop.
Absolutely.
And the short-term decision-making and the pressure they're under leads them to make decisions that would be suboptimal if you were looking at a 10-year window or a 20-year window. We've got to figure out a way to solve that for them. I think they do have some insurances and some ways of pre-selling crops, but it does seem to be they're constantly catching their tails.
Yeah. We've created a system that's got all kinds of incentives and subsidies and whatnot that were designed for a particular reason, but if we step back and say what's the best for sustainability and producing the most food, who knows?
All right, when we get back from this commercial break, I want to ask you about the cannabis crop and what you think the impact of that's going to be because it is becoming a large crop here in the United States when we get back on This Week in Startups. Hey, everybody. Let me stop for a moment this amazing episode and tell you about the Walker Corporate Law Group. Yes, they are a boutique law firm that specializes in the representation of entrepreneurs and startups. And Scott Walker is the founder of that company, and he is a personal friend of mine, and he does a great job working with startups. I have literally introduced him to dozens, maybe hundreds now, of startups, and they all rave about the services of the Walker Corporate Law Group because their lawyers have decades of experience. You're not going to get junior associates who are getting on-the-job training with your startup. No, they're going to help you with mergers and acquisitions, licensing, terms of service, privacy policies, formation, all this kind of stuff, fundraising, and they're really great at it. And they do fixed fees. They don't want to surprise people with crazy bills. They think that billable hours can reward inefficiency, so they'll just be fair with you. And that's what I love about them, because if you're a startup, you don't want to get that sticker shock and get a huge bill. Make sure you use the Walker Corporate Law Group, and you can do that by calling Scott Walker at 415-979-9998. 415-979-9998. You can email him, scott@walkercorporatelaw.com, or you can visit walkercorporatelaw.com as well. Scott@walkercorporatelaw.com, and let Scott Ed Walker on Twitter know, at Scott Ed Walker, know that you watch the program and you appreciate him supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. One of my oldest advertisers, one of my oldest friends in the industry, just a great guy, a total mensch, and he really takes care of the startups who work with him. Thank you, Scott Walker, for supporting This Week in Startups. Bye-bye. Okay, let's get back to this program. Come on. All right, I got Kent Cavender Bears with us. He is KBARES on the Twitter. His company's Robot, ROWBOT. Get it? Like a row of corn. And listen, it's a seed-funded company. Raised just a little bit of money, and they've made great progress. You can go see that progress at robot.com/video. And when we left our hero, Kent, I was asking him about cannabis. And now it's easy for us to all laugh about it. Oh, we were going to get stoned. But it is possible that cannabis becomes a very big crop in this country. It's been now legalized for recreational use, and I think in 3 or 4 states. Medical use is in, 20, 30 states. It's obviously going to be legal in the entire country in our lifetime very quickly. There may be a couple of pockets of resistance here and there, but the truth is a lot of this is going to replace pain medication. I think that's probably why we've had such a fierce battle against it and demonization of it, because people taking all these Vicodins and Oxycontins or whatever, it turns out like it's better for them to smoke weed and less addictive, and that the people who do use cannabis over that are becoming less addicted. It's not as addicting. Putting aside all that, what is the impact of cannabis farming? You know the farming industry. Are a lot of people starting to look to that crop and saying that's going to be the future crop in America? That is the opportunity, or is it still niche?
I bet it's going to be niche, and it's going to be really controlled.
Okay.
Even so, in Minnesota, there's medical marijuana allowed now. And I don't know very much about this. What I read, and that's
what you read. Wink, I got you.
What they've allowed a couple of companies to
company.
produce it, and it's still highly regulated. There's a lot that goes on in cornfields. People go out in the middle of a cornfield and plant stuff, and the farmer finds it. And we've actually been on a field where,
in between the rows, the robot finds a row.
It wasn't clear if the farmer had planted it or somebody else. So
a little secret row.
We opted to just not tell the farmer to, put him in a bad spot. But
right.
I do know one of the world's experts on the subject, so I'd be happy to connect you there.
Yeah. Are you, knowing what you know inside of agriculture, a lot of us on the outside, we're kind of concerned. We hear things about GMO, non-GMO, and let's face it, like if we can make a corn that reduced obesity, that is such a huge problem with society, we would all be very pro-GMO. So even the people who are very much anti-GMO would say, there's a GMO strain that would make childhood obesity go away. They would embrace it, I believe, till the cows came home, so to speak. So are you optimistic, putting aside GMO versus non-GMO, the increasing population, that the food supply is going to get better? Or do you feel scared about the food supply, like many of us do when we see films like Food Inc. and all this other stuff where it's like, whoa, Monsanto and all these other people are controlling the food supply, or, maybe we're not going to have enough, or maybe all these issues, nitrous getting flown into the, getting into the Gulf and creating this dead zone. Are you optimistic about it, or do you feel like, gosh, I don't know if we can solve all these problems?
I'm definitely optimistic. I think the trick is coming up with win-win solutions. So if we want to move farmers, we can beat them over the head with policy ideas and bad press, and it's not going to help. We need to come up with answers like this one. We can raise their profitability and they grow a more sustainable crop. Great.
Right.
And I would actually put it back on all of us consumers too. So I cut meat out of my diet a few years ago, and that immediately, I've made a choice, right? And now I can put more into other food. Yeah. So basically, the decisions I make, I don't have to be beholden to how animals are managed. Right. I didn't do it for that reason. Did it purely for a health reason.
Totally off meat, or a little chicken here and there, or pescatarian, nothing, no fish?
No dairy, which drives my brother nuts.
No
he's a dairy
what
farmer.
About fish?
No,
nothing. Completely vegan.
Yeah, if I'm out,
Eggs, butter.
If I were over at your house and you served something that was off my diet, I'd eat it because sort of in Rome to his Romans.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not like I'm gonna not be able to sleep for a month because I went over the line. But that was just a decision I made, and I think that if we did as Michael Pollan said and just sort of reduced, tried to eat things in reasonable amounts, it would probably have a big impact. We could probably raise the quality. But I also think diversity is going to be huge. So what that means is instead of miles and miles of a single crop,
right,
it gets really interesting to me if we have smaller machines that no longer care how many crops are on a single field. all of a sudden we've opened up a completely different possibility.
Right, because a lot of these
crops
farmers,
mixed
for them
together.
to switch out of corn into something else or wheat to something else is hard.
Oh yeah,
Well, their equipment's designed for one type.
yeah, and acres, hundreds and hundreds of acres of the same thing.
They can't change in real time. So if all of a sudden Brussels sprouts became super popular or kale became super popular, they have to respond to that. Like the kale boom, it's been a big boom, right? This kale thing.
Yeah, I mean that's a bigger jump. To go from corn to a vegetable would be a huge jump.
yeah.
But let's say we just mixed corn and soybeans on the same field.
Right.
Today you can't do that easily. But even that much, and maybe it's corn and soybeans and something else that just is good for the soil. So now you've got three things. Chances are you could end up with the same amount of product off that field, but it would be better for long-term sustainability.
Will there ever be like robots that are, let's say, consumer or community, probably community grade would be the way I would say it. So we have community gardens becoming a big trend.
Yep.
People are saying, hey, if we have 30, 40, 50 families here and we take this area, we make a community garden, we can all have the bounty of it. Is that a possible future? The same way solar has gone from, energy is moving from centralized and coal, and now everybody's going to have solar and power walls and be off the grid and it'll be localized. At some point, do you think we'll have some farms that'll be local community farms where you'll have robots that are small enough to tend to 2 acres or 3 acres and, somebody could be a farmer on the weekends, as it were?
That seems totally reasonable.
Yeah.
The challenges would be that kind of farming is perhaps harder to solve with a robot. So if it's weeding around vegetable plants, you could probably automate that over time. But the other thing to keep in mind is a lot of reason that people want to go back to the land and do those gardens is they want to be out there.
Yeah.
So we got to make sure that we're actually solving the right problem there.
I could see in the future people having like these recovering like some area that is no longer needed, some mall or something, and turning it into a community garden or putting it on the roof or something. But you have robots who actually go up there and plant and collect and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're going to have in our lifetime C-3PO, whatever, like robots that could go and pick an ear of corn or pick some. Because I'm seeing it in my incubator. We have a robotic company now that's doing something that I can't say right now, but they're doing something that humans do, that a large number of humans do, and it's going to replace what a large number of humans do, just like tractors did.
Yeah.
Anyway, the world's crazy, huh? It's really, how has it been raising money, like being like outside of the valley and being a farming family and stuff like that? Do people take you seriously, or do they just think like, oh, there's just a bunch of like farmers?
Well, so how long do we have?
It's a mix?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough. So we're doing hardware, which is a tough sell.
Of course.
Period. Yeah. Early on, we partnered with my brother's company. So my brother's longtime Carnegie Mellon guy went on and spun out a robotics company. So we partnered with them, allowed us to get super far on not much capital. Then we come out to Silicon Valley, and the typical thing is, oh, you don't have a team. Your team's not in. Well, yeah, we're going to raise money and bring our team in, but we wanted to get something to show for early days. We've got great patent protection going.
Yeah.
So, and that's all on us, not on the partner company.
Right.
So that's been challenging. And then we're doing agriculture. So if we come out here, most people are comfortable with California agriculture. They're not so comfortable with
Corn.
Midwestern agriculture.
Yeah, they don't know it.
So there's sort of, we narrow the
Maybe
funnel.
you could pivot into robots that slaughter animals. Is that possible? You have a slaughtering.
I'm going to leave that one for your
Do
incubator.
they actually? I'm actually thinking. I'm wondering. Do they? That's not done by robotics, right? There's no robotic
I doubt it.
kill houses for chickens and stuff like that. Well, they do some things, but it's generally a manual.
I'm not even sure I should speculate on that.
It's not. No, but clearly it's not robotic.
I think there's a lot of mechanization.
It's mechanical, but not robotic.
Yeah.
So, because that is actually, I think, in 100 years from now, what will we look back on and be ashamed of as a species? Like, factory farming will definitely be on the top of that list. I mean, obviously what we did to the planet, greenhouse gas, pollution, all this stuff is going to be on number 1 or 2, but factory farming, the suffering we're putting animals through for our sustenance is just shameful.
Well, I think as you just alluded to, the key there is, again, farmers are doing what they're doing because of the the demands of the market
Yeah.
and the constraints that they operate in.
It's like blaming Mexico because we're doing,
Yeah.
or Colombia because we're doing all of their marijuana and cocaine. It's
Yeah.
like, really? Americans are buying it, and we're going to arrest the poor schlub who's carrying it over the border and risking
Yeah.
his life and going to jail for his life so that a bunch of rich people in some suburb of Orange County can get high on the weekend. It's like, really? It's the person who carried it over the border's fault?
Yeah. So now we've got all the big companies saying they want cage-free eggs over the next several years.
Yeah.
That's going to cause a big impact.
Yep.
Maybe the price is going to go up.
Too
But it's a
cheap
signal
now.
from the market, right?
Yeah.
So we want cage-free hens. So the more that the market can say we want these things,
Yep.
then farmers will deliver. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, the farmers are just like, we'll do what you want. That was
Yeah.
Monsanto's point. I think it's pretty largely correct because if you look at milk, there was some hormone in milk,
Yeah.
and everybody went to town on that, and people got really concerned about it because I think it was causing puberty to onset and young girls quicker and some other stuff. And they were like, yeah, they got basically Walmart and a bunch of other people who were the distributors to say, hey, we're not going to put this hormone in milk anymore
Yep.
or in yogurt. And then if you look at the brands that are breaking out, it's a lot of these like Ronnie Brook Farms or whatever yogurts, and people are saying, hey, maybe I want to invest money in food.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to invest in what I'm putting in my body.
Yeah. And there's
breakfast.
no free lunch too. It's use that hormone
Right.
that causes the cows to overproduce.
Yeah.
It also causes the cows not to live so long because
Yeah.
now they're becoming like super producers and have less lifetime. So
I went to an organic milk farm up in Petaluma, and it's a very famous one just north of here. And I took my daughter, and my wife was like really disturbed by it because they're like, yeah, we put the calves over here and the moms over here because we don't want the moms to step on the calves and break their leg because that'd be terrible. And the calves then walk up to you and suck on your finger and they're crying.
yeah.
My daughter's like, why are they crying? Why won't they be with their moms? And you're
Well-
like, wow, this
But
is heavy stuff.
I mean, you get the big picture, which is cow gives calf. You got to take the calf away, or else you won't get any milk for the organic
Right.
milk supply or any
Right.
milk supply.
Exactly.
So that's sort of the sad reality is those calves get separated at birth from their mom.
It's really torturous.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, I'm glad there's people like you out there thinking about the food supply, making it more sustainable, because obviously we can't be slaughtering the number of animals at the level we're doing as China, as India, as South America comes online and they join the, I don't want to say modern world, but whatever the world is that the West has produced. They want to eat more meat. They want to eat more, chicken. They want to eat more steak. They want to eat more dairy.
Yep.
We can't possibly supply the people who are vegetarians and pescatarians on this planet with this much more meat. It would just blow the planet up. It's not possible.
Yeah. So it all comes back to the land area and
The land is
And
we're going to
water.
have to do this through vegetables. It's just an inevitability. And even the 3D printed meats and all that stuff, a lot of the material they're using is coming from plants, right? Soy
Sure.
and other stuff.
Yep.
All right, listen, this has been fantastic. Kent, thank you so much for coming in. Robot is the company, Robot Systems, robot.com, ROWBOT. It is not a robotic rowboat. Lest anybody think that this is for kayakers, no, it's for people who have fields of corn and wheat and all that kind of great stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody, I'm very excited about our next guest because she has built a company, a startup, a product that could help solve some of the challenging problems we face as a society through, almost like a Kickstarter-like process, basically the funding of experiments. And Bill Gates was so taken by this vision that he wrote about it on his blog. And then a bunch of my friends have invested in this. I don't know how I missed this investment, but this is the story of my life. It's just everybody, I'm assuming you emailed me at some point or pitched me and I didn't reply. How did I miss this one? Because everybody's in
know.
it.
It happened really fast.
It happened really fast. So my guest today is Cindy Wu, and she is the co-founder of experiment.com. What a domain name to start off with. How did you get experiment.com?
We got really lucky. We had a really terrible name before that I won't mention, but my co-founder one night just said, I don't want to change my name to something else that's also really crappy. So he Googled experiment.com and emailed the guy, and the guy got on a Skype call with him that night.
And so the idea here is to make science go faster. Mm-hmm. What does your solution at experiment.com do to make science go faster?
So the way that scientists get grants today is they will apply for a grant from NIH or NSF, and they put in the proposal, and they won't hear back.
NIH
Is National Institutes of Health.
Correct. Got it. Okay.
Or National Science Foundation, and they'll put
This
in
is
the
government-funded research.
Yes.
Got it.
Government-funded research. They put in the grant proposal. They won't hear back for maybe 6 months to a year, and then once they get the funding, then they can get started. And so what we've done is we've created a way for them to put up their proposals, and anyone anywhere in the world with a credit card can give directly to that scientist, and within 30 days they could have their money.
Wow. So it's literally Kickstarter for scientists.
Except for you don't get any tangible return.
No tangible return as in like swag or something like that. Why not? Why don't I get a t-shirt that says I funded, this cancer research? Wouldn't that be cool?
I think that it could be really cool. I have t-shirts that are like science t-shirts, but the output of science is more knowledge or more science. And the way that scientists share their outcomes is they publish papers. And what we've found is that what the backers want is they don't necessarily want a t-shirt or a mug. What they want to do is know where the money went and know whether or not a new discovery was made.
Got it. And do I get to sweat the project? Do I get to sweat the experiment? In other words, that's a poker term. It means do I get to see what happens? Do I see the result? In other words, am I going to get updates? So here it says, how serious is internet gaming addiction? And this is Dr. Andrew Pizarablisky. I mean, could you possibly have more consonants in this name? P-R-Z-Y-B-Y-L. I guess the Y's don't count as consonants in this concept. But he's from Oxford. He's trying to raise $6,700. He's 59% funded, and billions of hours are spent every week playing online video and computer games. The study aims to estimate the prevalence of yada, yada, yada. Do I get to sweat it then? Do I get to watch him do his experiment, see the original data? What do I get to see for putting the money up, if anything?
So you do get to see the process as it unfolds. During his campaign right now, he'll post background information on what other research has already been done, why his idea is unique, and once he gets the funding, he'll post a lab note that says, thanks for the funding. I plan to start this experiment, say, in March, and it will take 3 months. I'll update you once a month, and then when I publish the paper in a peer-reviewed journal, I'll share the results directly with you.
Now, when they post the results in the peer-reviewed journal, this has been a point of contention, hasn't it? Like, the peer-reviewed journals or they don't own the results, but they don't make them publicly available.
Yes.
They're all locked up.
Yes.
Which, to me, is bullshit.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, they don't own them, and that they lock them up. Why don't these people publish them to a free public space? In fact, I had somebody on the show at one point who was doing this. There was a site that let people publish their stuff. Are you going to publish the papers, or are they bound to not make them available to the public?
So we'll always side with the scientist, so whatever the scientist thinks is best for their project, though we highly encourage the scientists to publish open access, so in journals like PLOS. And we've actually put together a journal ourselves where they can publish on our platform. So after they've already published in, say, a closed access journal, they can take that information and we put it into a form that's much more friendly for the layperson, including videos, including photos, and it shows all of the backers' names. And you can find that on the site.
And then they put lab notes in?
And the lab notes are also included in chronological order, so you can see the progress of the project. What I think is that research is going to be published in real time in the future, and it's going to happen no matter what.
How does that change things if you're publishing in real time? And are there risks to publishing in real time that people might jump the fence, so to speak, and take your data and your incomplete science and make decisions and or proclamations or use your data against you? All this stuff I think would be concerns if I was doing research on gaming addiction and I had some early results. Then somebody who's anti-gaming or pro-gaming might take the results and jump the fence with them, start publishing them and saying, oh, the early research says this.
I think
Is there a fear of that?
That is a really big concern for scientists, is their concern that people will steal their ideas and then they'll publish them before the initial scientist can. Whether or not people take their initial results and present them in a way that maybe isn't entirely accurate, I don't think is as much of a concern for scientists.
These scientists want to be relevant. Actually, they'd be pretty stoked if somebody's presenting any of their science, I would suppose.
I think being relevant is somewhat important to scientists, but I think what scientists care about is not necessarily relevancy, but I think scientists care most about prestige.
Prestige. How is prestige different than relevancy? Like you said, they want to be famous. I kind of think it's similar, isn't it?
I think it's prestige in the right circles. So they would care
Peer
that they're
prestige. I gotcha. Because I thought you were going to say they don't care about prestige or notability or relevance or people picking up on it. They care about finding the answer.
I would hope that that's the case, but I don't think that's.
You don't
always
think
the
so?
case. I think in the best scientists that is, but
getting to the answer.
Yeah, but the system doesn't reward that.
How did you come up with this idea?
I was an undergraduate at the University of Washington, and my co-founder and I had just published research where we designed an anthrax therapeutic with the U.S. Army, and we presented at the largest synthetic biology competition at MIT and won that. And I was doing a literature search, and I found that this drug that we had designed could also be used as an antibiotic for more generic hospital-acquired infections. And I went to my professor and said, hey, I have this idea. We have this unique drug that we've created in the lab, and I need $5,000 to try this. And he basically said, Cindy, look, you're 20 years old. You don't have a PhD. People in the system doesn't fund you.
Right.
So we decided that we were going to build a platform to allow anyone to fund these high-risk ideas that NSF and NIH don't fund.
And what has the early adoption been like? You went to Y Combinator, you graduated in 2013-ish, and then you got a bunch of investors, Dave Morin, Index Ventures, Bill Warner, friend of ours, Esther Dyson, friend of ours, just tons of folks, Mark Bell, we know. What have you accomplished in these last few years? How many experiments have occurred on the platform? Where are you at with the deployment of this product?
So we've raised over $5 million for research projects. We've funded over 400 projects, and our success rate on the platform is above 40%.
That's pretty impressive. How many months have you been public?
We've been public since April 2012.
What product or what research project do you think, which one raised the most money, and then which one do you think is the most potentially important for humanity?
Second one's hard. The first one, the projects that's raised the most is the Batten disease project. Do you want me to bring it up on the computer?
Yeah, that'd be great. Go ahead. Because I'm looking through them and I see popular and newest, ending soon, funded. There you go. Boom. Okay. Whoa. Well, I don't even know what Batten disease is. Am I pronouncing correctly? Batten disease? Batten disease. What is it?
It's a rare disease that I think affects less than 100,000 kids. It's a lysosomal storage disease, and it affects the brain. And this project was put together by Gordon Gray, who's a producer in Hollywood, and he found out.
I know about this. His two kids, his daughters?
Yeah.
Had the disease and they were going to die within a year or two?
So he found out last year around this time and decided that he was going to find a cure. And he talked to all the scientists that he could get a hold of, and he found there was one doctor in New Zealand that had treated his daughter's specific type of Batten's, which is CLN6, in sheep, and he saved 1 out of 4 sheep. And he wanted to replicate that study, and he knew that in order to do that, he needed at least $2.5 million to start. He needs $10 million to do everything that he wants, but he said that he told me, he was like, we just need to start right away. And so we put together this campaign for them, and you can see the first backer on this project is Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing the number of celebrity friends he has who came out of the woodwork, Kevin Costner, et cetera. And he made that video. I remember seeing the video specifically. So how did he wind up on your platform? How did this happen? You saw him post about him needing to do this and said, hey, you can put it on our platform?
So I saw one of our investors post about it, and I was at LAX at the time. And I was just like, I need to figure out how to get in touch with Gordon, because what he was doing, he was just using a PayPal page. And so I reached out to one of my friends that knew Gordon, and she had just met with him like the week before, and I flew to LA and met with him in person.
Heavy stuff. And so that raised the most, obviously having those celebrities involved, and it helps. And where is it at in terms of, obviously the budget got reached on October 24th. So this is a relatively new thing. We're taping this on February 1st, 2016. So this is only a 3-month-old project. How is it going so far? And is this in any way going to be able to help his daughter's situation?
So they've deployed the funds. I don't know exactly how the research has progressed. I know that they're still fundraising because they need $10 million total. And that's all that I know for...
Yeah. And so what other ones do you think, what other projects on here are super relevant, and then which ones are completely wacky? Because I would think when you open a platform like this, scientists are wacky people. I know this scientist community. I don't know it well, but I know they're wacky people. And I know that NIH is probably turning down a lot of ideas for a reason, like they're wacky. But you have a platform where you let anybody post, right? Like, do you tell somebody this isn't worth doing and you tell them no, they can't post it?
So we don't do that.
You don't. So that means you get some wacky stuff on here.
But we do review every project. So
and what is that? What does your review entail?
when someone submits a project to experiment, they'll get a review by our team. We verify for identity. We verify that it is a research project, so we don't fund projects that aren't using the scientific method to answer a research question.
Okay.
And we look at the budget to make sure that they are requesting enough money to be able to complete what they set out to complete.
What percentage of projects do you actually wind up approving?
I'd say probably 80%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So people are not taking the time to do this if it's not legit. Mm-hmm. But you've seen what happened to Indiegogo and Kickstarter where projects didn't get delivered. Mm-hmm. And it was a major problem for people. That has informed your thinking on having a strong filter before hitting publish?
I don't think that played a part in having the strong filter. I think the reason why we do want a strong filter is because we want to be a platform for scientists, and so it's mostly to filter out people that are like, I want to raise money for my company, or I want to raise money for making a book or something.
People not understanding what experiment.com is for. Mm-hmm. What defines a scientist to you? In other words, if I have my Bachelor's of Arts of Psychology, which I do from Fordham University, and I want to do a psychological experiment, and I decide I'm going to put something up there, I'm going to redo the Milgram study, and we're going to torture people, see if people are willing to torture each other. I'm going to bring it back. Do you look at the ethics of it and the fact that I'm an undergraduate and say no? Or what if I had no college degree, but I said I'm going to use a scientific method, I'm going to bring back the Milgram experiment? Like, are you going to look at the nature of the project and make an ethical judgment on it? And are you going to look at my degree? And how do you ascertain whether you would allow me to do that?
So we look at your degree, but it doesn't determine whether or not you're eligible.
Right, because you were an undergraduate when you wanted to do yours.
So I would say you are a scientist. And I think anyone in the world...
Finally, somebody said it.
Anyone in the world can be a scientist.
Right.
And that's our mission, is to create a world where anyone can be a scientist.
No college degree, no problem.
No. We had high school kids that are sending something to the International Space Station.
So they're going to do an experiment, so you don't need to even have a college degree. Or a high school degree in this case.
No.
You could be getting it. Then what about the ethics and the morality, or just ethics in general? Forget about morality, but just ethics in general, because science, there are ethical implications, and you're doing biology and chemistry on here and psychology, psychological experiences. These carry with them some responsibility. Who takes the responsibility if I do the Milgram study and I have people wind up, like happened in the Milgram study, being tortured for the rest of their lives because it turns out they were secretly Nazis?
So if you do any study that has to that uses human subjects or animals, we require an IRB. IRBs are...
What does that mean, IRB?
It's an institutional review board, so they'll review whether or not it is ethical. Currently, you have to be part of an institution to get an IRB. So if you wanted to do a study on other humans, you might not be eligible on experiment, but we could help you figure out how to get an IRB.
Hundreds of people have done experiments now, or asked to have their experiments funded. What's the average funding size of these?
$5,000.
The average is $5,000.
Yeah.
Science is cheap? Is that what you're telling me?
I think that there is a common misconception that science is expensive. I
had it. Yeah, I thought the average would be 50 or 500. So what is what people are paying for mostly the time of the scientist and the time of the interns?
They're mostly paying for materials or access to equipment or whatever they need to execute their research project.
But materials and equipment access, you're saying they have to rent equipment by the hour or timeshare or something?
Well, it's usually to buy equipment, or sometimes you can rent equipment, like you can rent equipment through Science Exchange or outsource experiments, though it's not as common.
Has anybody done 2 experiments on here yet, or 3?
Yeah.
You've had people do repeat?
Yeah.
So that leads me to my next question, which is, are you going to get to the point where people are able to make a living being a scientist on here?
I would hope so.
How close are you? Is there somebody who's raised enough? I mean, obviously that one huge study for the
Batten's disease.
Batten disease, that's going to be, if at $2.6 million, I'm assuming there's going to be 5 or 10 people who are going to be employed full time to work on that. But could somebody just get really good at, just like they're good at Kickstarter or Indiegogo, get really good at putting together campaigns enough so that they fund themselves just doing continuous research and something they're passionate about?
I think so.
It's going to happen, yeah.
Yeah. We had one employee, his name is Ethan Perlstein, and he did a crowdfunding campaign for his research when he was at Princeton. And he was applying for faculty positions at the time, and he decided he just didn't want to deal with academia anymore. And he worked for us for a little while, and then he raised money for his company called Perlstein Lab, and they raised, I think, over $3 million. It's not like a donation-based crowdfunding effort, but he is doing basic science with his full-time team.
And people can get a little cheeky monkey on here. I see that Cindy Wu put one step closer to the perfect chocolate chip cookie here, and she crushed. I don't know if you know this scientist or have access to her, but she raised $181 to do this. Was this like, I just literally happened to stumble on this because I was like, I wonder what's in arts.
Yeah.
But you did a cookie experiment to see if that would work, what the best experiment was.
Yeah, so anyone can be a scientist. You don't have to be working in biology. You can be making cookies in your kitchen. I've actually done 2 cookie experiments. The first one was to test whether or not creamed butter or melted butter would have an effect on the crispiness of the cookie. And the second one that I just funded is looking at whether or not if you freeze cookie dough, if that'll make the cookie softer.
If you freeze cookie dough, this is important research actually, now that I'm thinking about it. If you freeze the cookie dough, would it make the cookies softer when you do cook them? And this must have been an urban legend or something, or some wives' tale, as it were, that you heard about and wanted to put to the test, correct?
Yeah, so I read about it on a blog, and one of the instructions was put the cookie dough in the freezer for 12 hours. And I wondered why we need to do that.
And have you executed on this important cookie research?
Not yet.
Not
I funded
yet.
it last week, and it will start. And I think I might do some things like take the cookie dough that has been frozen and send it into the lab to see if the proteins have denatured or something like that.
That's brilliant. Now, if I wanted to do something where I did would this be an experiment? You tell me if it's an experiment or not. I want to collect food from 10 vegetarian restaurants or vegan restaurants and test with the lab if they are in fact vegan. Is that an experiment? Yes? It feels like an experiment.
That is an experiment.
Somebody did this in LA because they thought all the vegan restaurants some of them tasted too good.
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't believe that this vegan quesadilla is a vegan quesadilla because this tastes like real cheese. Anyway, they find out in this study that a bunch of bloggers paid for, because it was $2,000 worth of testing, that like all these vegan restaurants failed. They went to the vegan restaurants.
They're
The
all
restaurants,
fake.
what's that?
The food was not vegan.
It was not vegan cheese. So they're like, wait, what's going on here? Why are there caseins, I guess they call it caseins or something, which are animal proteins, I guess, that were in the cheese? How is this possible? And the restaurants were like, look, here's the boxes. It says vegan cheese on it. Like, we're not lying. Because the restaurants then got slammed on the blogs for failing. And the restaurants were like, we swear, we only buy vegan. They followed it all back. They all had the same cheese.
Yeah.
The provider who was making vegan cheese in China, or the distributor, was lying. And this distributor, because in China they have a slightly different benchmark for like business ethics. Like it's a little bit, no offense to the people of China, but they got caught putting plaster in baby formula to make it spread thinner. Like there's some bad, corrupt stuff going down there. And this person was importing regular cheese. And to them, vegan, vegetarian, it's all the same thing. And if they can get a higher price for vegan, they stop vegan on the side of the box. All happened through testing. So this is where I think what's interesting is it's not just for people who are scientists. What other non-scientist experiments have gone on in there, in this cookie dough genre?
In the cookie dough genre.
Or just fun? What are the fun ones?
There's one. This one is pretty technical. I'll bring it up. I
kind of feel like you're setting up the punchline when you're saying it's very technical.
We sequenced the genome of a famous internet cat named Lil Bub. This is Lil Bub, and he has a few she has a few deformities, and a team.
Wait, is this Ugly Cat?
No, this
No.
is Lil Bub.
Little Bub. I'm not
I
aware
think
of
her
this
full
meme.
name is Lillian.
Ah, okay. So Little Bub is internet famous. I get it.
And Lil Bub doesn't know. We don't know why Lil Bub has. I think she has like more than 6 fingers or paws on each. What are they called?
Wow.
Digits on each paw.
Digits on each paw,
Her
sure.
tongue is always sticking out. She has really big eyes, and this team of scientists just wanted to sequence her genome to see if they could figure out why.
And you just literally sent 100,000 This Week in Startups listeners into the rabbit hole. I have the Little Bub page up, and I am extremely fascinated by the size of her eyes, and the tongue is out all the time. And there's a store, and
I think
so
Lil Bub's touring right now in New York.
it's just unbelievable. I mean, she is very unique.
Yeah.
It's a very unique animal. I mean, she has a Wikipedia page. Look at this. And you're right. There are that is a absurd amount of digits. Now, have we gotten her DNA sequenced yet?
Yeah,
successfully?
so if you click on the lab notes section of that page, you'll be able to see, I think right when they put our DNA in, all the scientists pressed the button to sequence DNA together. And there might be a video.
Oh, really? I'm searching for it now.
In the lab notes section, I can click it.
You pull it up. Yeah, you click the lab notes section here.
Yeah. So I think
There they are.
from
Wow.
bub blood to
Amazing. Like when you get a
Bubino.
bunch of Redditors together and then put them with scientists, this is what you get. This is
Yeah.
what you've brought.
They even made a short video.
Hit play. We got to see it. It's just too awesome. And there they are. They're sequencing Little Bub biome.
It's a sequencing machine.
Unbelievable. And now they
That's
will
the
be able to
sequence.
create an army of Little Bums.
Yeah,
Everybody
maybe.
can have one.
Yeah.
You can have your own clone of Little Bum. Amazing. So Bill Gates wrote about it. How did that go about? Did you know he was writing about it, or you just wake up one day and like your Twitter's going crazy?
He wrote about it on his blog. I don't really think our Twitter went crazy. I don't know how he found us.
And he just wrote about it. And did that change your fate in some way, or
We've been able to use the quote, but other than that, I don't
did you have
even
to ask
know
his
if
permission to do the quote, or is just like put it right up?
we
Yeah.
put it up, and if he asks us to take it down, then we'll take it down.
All right. So, what do you think are the experiments that you guys most want to see occur, and what do you think will be the huge advantage to doing it this way over the NIH? Because if it's a big experiment like the NIH, shouldn't the NIH fund it? Like, are they super inefficient at funding it? I mean, 6 months does seem like a long time, but it's not the end of the world. So is this going to actually be meaningful in some way? Because the NIH, they're going to fund anything important, or am I wrong?
So the NIH, it takes a long time to get a proposal through, but they also only fund, I think, less than 15% of proposals now. And if you look at how many proposals are submitted through NIH, it's doubled in the last 10 years. So we have twice the amount of qualified scientists, and they're funding half of them, half of the proposals. And so that leaves a lot of good ideas on the table. What I'm most interested in right now is we just launched a new grants program. So up until last week, the only way that you could fund projects is the project is already available and you go there and give to the project. But often people will come to me and say, Cindy, I have $50,000 and I want to give it to something very specific.
Oh, so like an X Prize type thing. You're doing a reverse,
Yeah.
like a challenge.
Yeah, like a challenge. So we launched a challenge last week for marine mammals related projects with an anonymous donor. And we're planning on launching one very soon to
What's the marine one? Tell me about the marine one.
the Marine Mammals Project is probably one of the most exciting projects. Well, the grants program is probably the most exciting project I've worked on. And
I'm trying to find the grants project here. How do I find it?
It's hidden.
It's hidden, okay.
Soft launch.
Gotcha. Oh, soft launch. Gotcha. Okay.
We went out and selected 13 projects that are all marine mammals related, and the project that has the most number of backers in the third week will receive an additional $2,000 grant. And you can see that we have somebody going to Antarctica studying Weddell seals. We also have people right in between Russia and Alaska.
The Bering Strait, as it were. So some anonymous person gave you 50 dimes and said, give this away to help the oceans.
Correct.
Somebody who's just someone's down with the oceans, like a Jacques Cousteau type. Mm-hmm. But it's probably more like a Richard Branson type. Did I guess it?
I can't reveal who it is.
I got it. I'm such a genius. I even surprised myself. No, it is Richard Branson, isn't it? It's anonymous. You can't say.
Yeah, I can't say.
But anyway, if Richard Branson winds up becoming an investor, then we'll know. Is he an investor in the company?
He is not.
He's not.
I've never met him.
Oh, okay. He would be into it. But that's interesting. And then if they want to give away $50K on the platform, they of course make a donation to experiment.com to manage this process. So they give you like a matching fund or 20% to manage it.
So we don't have a management fee right now. That might change. It's still something we're testing out. So it's an experiment in itself.
Got it. Because you need to find a way to make this sustainable. How does it currently work? You can't live off of like 5% of these donations.
Yeah, currently we take a 5% fee
Yeah,
off every dollar.
That's nothing because if you have to pay 3% to is it 5% plus credit cards?
Yeah.
So even that is not enough money to make a business out of.
The same way Kickstarter operates.
Yeah, but Kickstarter is operating at a huge scale, $20 million Kickstarters, and even they have problems with making money. Mm-hmm. I mean, if a couple of $1 billion goes through the system and they make $10 million a year, they're still going to probably be losing money.
Yeah.
It's just too hard to make money off those fees.
So
how else would you make money?
For us, so for the grants program, we might charge people. It would be like funding science as a service. And the next grants program that we're going to put together is a grants program to find a cure and try to detect the Zika virus. So the Zika virus is,
that's the thing everybody's talking about is just terrible for pregnant women and just horrific, and brains are getting brain damage, right? Yeah.
So one of our investors, Ligaya Tishi, who was the head of community,
she's great,
Airbnb and Yelp, is putting up a challenge grant to do a few things. One is finding a way to test whether or not pregnant women have Zika virus, put together a vaccine, and so we're currently recruiting scientists to work on that. And it's something that the NIH will probably step up and do, but we don't know how long that will take, and we don't know how fast Zika virus will spread.
What about having a sponsor do this? Because I do think that there are probably brands that would benefit from research. Because listen, Microsoft has a huge R&D arm. Google does a ton of R&D. They have, the X group or whatever. So would it not be interesting for somebody who wanted to market their brand, like let's say it was Beats? If Beats said, we want somebody to do research on, this core music listening, something about music and some experiment around music, what music helps people sleep or reduces their anxiety, brought to you by Beats. And Beats did like 10 different, experiments around music and its impact on people's lives, pick the best ones, and they just pay you $100,000 to do that as marketing.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, we might do that. We're talking to a few people that want to do that, but we haven't launched anything yet.
Yeah. I was an investor, or I'm still an investor, in Challenge Post, which was like a challenge platform, but they did so well with hackathons, they became Dev Posts, where developers post their stuff. So they took one area of like X prizes and challenges and put it and just went all in on just developer contests and stuff like that and developer work. But it seems to me like this idea of doing experiments that are fun and interesting that people can sweat the result of could be great for branding, for brands.
So, I mean, we will always put the scientist first. So we will only do challenge grants if that's what the scientists want and that's what the community wants. It could make a lot of money as well.
But this biology one, if BP oil is destroying the ocean, and they got a lot of guilt and they got a huge fine, if BP oil came along and said, we want to put $250K up and give you guys $100K for running it to help the ocean because we really effed it up.
Yeah.
You'd take it.
Yeah,
it's more money for grants.
Will take it. There are certain cases where the scientists won't. So if Marlboro wanted to put up money for smoking research, I don't know, some scientists don't want that money.
That's interesting. But if they had you as an intermediary and the guarantee that it would just be published. See, I think that should be the punishment for people who get caught doing bad stuff, is that they have to put money into science to try to make up for what they did.
That would be great. More money in science is always
No, like if Coca-Cola is just, let's say Coca-Cola was guilty of like some infraction around obesity, or like, I'm not saying they are, but if they knew that there was some issue around obesity and they, the tobacco companies would be a better example. If the tobacco companies got busted like they did for marketing to minors and doing all this other bad stuff they did and, subverting test results, the punishment should be not just a fine that goes to the government, a fine that goes to scientists to do research to get people off of their nicotine addiction.
That would be great.
That's what I'll do when I'm in charge. If you succeed, what will the world look like in 10, 20 years?
If we succeed, or when we succeed,
Yeah.
anyone will be able to be a scientist. So if you want to start a research project, the place that you're going to go to start that is experiment.com. We're a funding platform today, but that doesn't mean that's just the start. I think that there are a lot of areas in science that need to be changed, including open access publishing that we spoke about. I think all research papers should be published open access, and I think that that model will rise up to the top, and any journal that is closed access will be kicked out of the game. So we do plan to get into publishing and other areas like that.
Well, that's a great place to make money too. If you have a journal that people subscribe to, and would you actually make a print journal where like people could get experiment.com as a print publication and then like pay $100 a year for it?
Yeah, so we're planning on doing that. I can show you the journal that we've already put together.
Oh, that's fantastic. To me, that's amazing because people would pay, and now you've got a reason to give you money.
So we put together a journal, and this is the first time we've done this. And this is the first issue with three projects that were funded on experiment and produced results. This
Beautiful
project in particular published in a peer-reviewed journal, and we took that information.
How does a parasite create zombie-like behavior?
Have you heard of zombie ants?
I haven't, but I think I know the next big TV show coming to AMC. So what are zombie ants? Explain to me. This is fascinating.
Zombie ants are created when a fungus infects the ant on the floor of the forest, and it'll reprogram the ant to walk up the tree onto a branch, take over, and then a big spore will come out of its head, and then it will reproduce the spores and then land on the next ant.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the ant dies.
And the ant dies.
That is really and so they were trying to figure out how does this parasite actually make the ants go turn into zombies.
So they had two steps to their process. One is they had to replicate it in the lab. So Carissa was able to take the ants from the field, put them in the lab, put them in a little box, and then reproduce the ant climbing up the stick and
Genius.
dying. And then she had to dissect the brains.
It's pretty awesome. And what's interesting about it is you publish it in a very like medium.com, like gorgeous, looped video kind of way for people who are listening. Like it looks very much like the gorgeous publishing platforms out there. But are you going to do it in print as well? Or do you have to do it in print for it to matter to people? Or, oh, wow, that's a gorgeous graphic too. You guys put some effort into this.
Yeah, this is all my co-founders' work, Denny.
Gorgeous. Would people pay for this? Or is this just more marketing?
I think people would pay for this. I think people currently pay for magazines.
Yeah.
Do we have to do print? I don't think we necessarily have to. Do I want to do print? Yes, I want to do print.
Print is a very interesting beast. Like having done magazines, it's a lot of work, but it makes things very real for people, and it will increase your profile, right? In prestige, like you talked about before, people want to be prestigious. I also noticed that institutions are now doing more than one project each. So University of Hawaii has 4 projects, Berkeley has 5, South Carolina has 8. So are you doing like street teams or like college ambassadors to get this going on campuses? Is that the idea?
We don't have any college ambassadors, but what we found is if one project is successful at the university, we see a lot of other projects from that university also come on board. We've seen that some of the scientists will become like semi-ambassadors, so then everyone will go to that person to ask him how he did this. South Carolina is very interesting. Their Department of Research is matching every dollar that comes on experiment through their own funds.
See, that's also brilliant, is that this could prove demand, but it also makes scientists have to be a little bit like marketers because they got to email all their friends and hit up their friends and everybody and the press. So then I guess the complaint would be, oh, these scientists are now having to do marketing and fight to get money. But they've always had to fight to get money. They've already had to do this marketing. They just did it with a different group, the NIH.
Yeah, and they spend more than 50% of their time writing grants, most of which are rejected.
You got to get Bill Gates, since he's into this, like just to literally give you $100 million, like $10 million a year or $5 million a year every year to just do experiments that are related to the things he's already working on with the Gates Foundation. In other words, like if he's taking on malaria or whatever it happens to be, you could just put out these malaria challenges. Hey, just give us some ideas of what you need money for, and then use the platform to match it. So he matches.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
All right. Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie, can you email Gates at the special email I have and just let him know my suggestion, send him this clip. I don't have Bill Gates' secret email. I'm just making that up. All right, listen, Cindy Wu, continued success. Everybody go check out experiment.com and follow let's_experiment on the Twitter. Is that right? And then you can follow Cindy Wu, CINDYWU. And congratulations to all my friends who are investors. I think this could be a big one. And we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. I wanted to just take a moment to thank our friends at Salesforce for supporting the Launch Festival. The Launch Festival is something we do here at This Week in Startups, and it's our live event that we hope 15,000 founders are going to come to this year. In fact, at the taping of this, we had over 11,000 people registered, and you know what? The majority of them come, over 10,000 of them, for free as our guest. Yes, free for founders to come to a 3-day event with the world's greatest speakers, and we give 250 startup companies that are under 2 years old and under $2 million in funding. We give them a free demo pit table. Other conferences charge $10,000 for this. Other conferences charge $3,000 for a ticket. We do it for free, and the reason we're able to do it for free is we have people like Salesforce who support the event. And now, of course, Salesforce is wildly supportive of entrepreneurs, and they have a huge marketplace and a program for enterprise app businesses. So the Salesforce independent software vendor team, the ISV team, will be there, and they want to meet with any prospective app partner. So if you're doing enterprise work, you're going to want to go to startups.salesforce.com, and they're hosting a VIP lunch, and a rep will be a main judge stage. And Salesforce has just been wildly supportive. Actually, Mark Benioff came last year and gave a great talk with Adam from Fortune. And I want to just take a moment to thank them for supporting the Launch Festival again. So one more time, you can join the partner community at partners.salesforce.com and follow on Twitter, PartnerForce and the App Exchange. These are great programs by Salesforce to support founders, just like we do at the Launch Festival. And if you want to come to the Launch Festival as our guest, go to launchfestival.com. Hopefully we still have some tickets left, but they're going to fill up really quick. So thanks again, Salesforce.